on the phone right now. He is he's labeling himself as the conservative Republican candidate for the primary for the congressional 22nd district race. On the phone right now from Binghamton, it is Michael Vasquez. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Mark. How are you doing today?
It's cold, but it's at least the sun is shining, Mike. So that's always a plus, right?
Always.
So, Mike, give us your background and why you decided to jump in this the congressional primary.
Well, I'm a 45-year-old homeowner here in Binghamton and a small business owner, as well as working a full-time job. And what I've been doing for the last 7 years is political commentary. I've covered every issue that's out there on the news, and I've spoken to just about every one of the politicians in the lower central New York and southern tier. And I've just seen we're not getting represented properly in Congress. I think that's true. I mean, look at the approval rate, 8.5%. Everyone agrees on that. And it's time that we actually start getting that, because we have too many serious decisions facing Congress, and we're not getting the serious answers.
624-0870. Give us a call. 624-0870. So, Mike, what kind of are a couple of the key issues that you feel that Congressman Hanna has failed to represent his constituents to the fullest?
Well, just in this year, he's flipped positions on immigration, on the NSA. He's failed to provide opinions and direction or representation on Syria. I know this is not something that's new. I mean, if you look back at his history, going back into 2010, Time Magazine was noting how he's flipped on positions since that time. And it's consistent. I mean, you can find that throughout his entire history. And then it doesn't take more than a Google search to find all the times where he's flipped position. That's not a proper representation for the public. How can we trust our representative and know that he's putting our issues first if we can't trust where he stands on the issues?
Frank?
Michael, good morning. This is Frank.
Hey, Frank.
Hey, Michael, question. You mentioned flipping positions on immigration, NSA, and even Syria. Can you give us what your position is on immigration, NSA, and then Syria as the third and final question?
Sure. In terms of immigration, I have strong concerns about just giving, or as it's written right now, the proposals that are being looked at are looking to reward criminal activity. Let's call it what it is. These are people who have actively pursued violations of our law, and right now the proposal is to give them jobs. That's not something I'm for. I'm against that. I understand we have to do something to address the issue, but I don't think giving them citizenship is going to help us. In addition, I disagree with Mr. Hanna that we need to add 90,000 STEM jobs for immigrant workers instead of giving them to U.S. citizens. That's a proposal he's working on right now, and I disagree with that. I believe it's H.R. 2131. The second question was in terms of the NSA. I'm in favor of the MASH amendment that was put out, and Mr. Hanna voted against it. That was something to protect the average citizen. It didn't change them in their ability to protect the nation. It only stopped them from doing the abuses that we're seeing have been rampant in that organization, and no one's addressed. The law would have actually said and protected the average citizen. Mr. Hanna voted against that. That's very telling. And that's our Fourth Amendment. In addition, the last one was in Syria. While the entire world, I mean, England, Germany, 70% of Americans had a firm position on what our president was doing, a unilateral decision to take action that could have brought us into another war. Mr. Hanna, at the same time that the rest of the world had a definitive answer, couldn't come up with one. He needed to keep looking into it.
Mm-hmm.
I take that as someone who's taking a more political approach to this. And when I say political, I mean politician, waiting to see where the winds blow to take a position. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know Mr. Hanna. But I can only go by what he's reported and what I'm seeing across the entire nation at that time. And then there's more. You can go into drones. there are many other issues that have serious concerns.
624-0870, we're talking with congressional Republican candidate from Binghamton, Mike Vasquez. Go ahead, Frank.
Mike, you did a good job responding to those questions. Can you educate us more, a little bit about yourself? Tell us your education, your work history. Could you please?
Sure. In terms of you asked first about my education. I went to Vanderbilt High School in the Bronx. I don't think anyone knows about that school out here. I'm originally from New York City. I've been up here about 10 years.
Okay.
In terms of college, I went to Rutgers University. I studied English, philosophy, and chemistry. I did not get a degree. Wasn't blessed with the money to be able to finish. And instead started working. I'm a former stockbroker. I'm a fully licensed auto insurance agent. I own my own company, which is MV Consulting Incorporated.
Is that MV or NV?
MV.
MV?
M as in Mike, V as in Victor.
Yep.
Yes.
Mike, would you call yourself a conservative Republican? Is that correct?
Yes.
How do you translate conservatism to the general voters? You mean because people hear the word conservative and they get very afraid and they think that it's the old stodgy, white guy with money that hates gays, hates abortion, and hates immigrants. How do you translate that to the voters and to really get the ideals of conservatism to the general populace so they understand what it is to be a conservative?
Okay. I find it funny. I've never been, no one's ever looked at me and mentioned old white. For those of the listeners who don't know, I am a black Puerto Rican.
Right.
I understand. That's the image that's been sold to America about what it is to be a conservative. What a conservative is what most people in America tend to be. These are people who are law-abiding. They have a strong faith in our nation. They believe strongly in the Constitution that has been written and the laws that are in there. A fiscal conservative, which I am definitely, wants to make sure that our government spends our money wisely, does not waste it, and has the foresight to say, we're not going to keep spending money that we do not have, causing the nation to go into a death spiral of debt that will ultimately hurt us. I mean, if you compared our government to took the same way we're using our funds, compare that to a corporation or an individual, that's a person that would lose their house. That's a corporation that would be sued by every single shareholder for abuses. You can't just keep spending. We have $17 trillion in debt. We have a $15 trillion GDP. In just 3 years, the number is going to become $22 trillion in debt, $18 trillion in GDP, and that's assuming interest rates don't move, which is almost incredible to see. No. You can't survive like that. No business can, no people can.
Michael, this is Frank again. Again, first I'd like to say, refreshing interview. I think you're speaking well. Yesterday we had on Michael Kaczynski, who is also going to be challenging Congressman Hanna in the upcoming primary, and a couple of things that he highlighted, similar to what you just said, debt and spending, and he also identified the health care issues, specifically the Affordable Health Care Act. What would your positions be in regard to, well, we asked Mr. Kaczynski, would you raise the debt ceiling as was done recently? And what would you have done differently with the Affordable Health Care Act, if anything?
Well, starting with the Health Care Act, let's look there. I've been writing about this and covering this as a political commentator and a member of the press since 2009. This was always a flawed law. It was admitted to be a flawed law. This was passed as a partisan action that was not read. Many of the Democrats were proud of it. And as we've come to find out, many of the aspects of the law that are outright lies have been known. Senator Gillibrand recently admitted such on ABC News, that Democrats knew this was all going to happen and voted for it anyway and decided never to tell anyone. I don't agree with any of that. There are aspects of the law that are good. I think that's great and we should keep them, but I believe at this point, because it's so messed up, it needs to be repealed and replaced with an actual bipartisan law that maybe takes into account things that actually help improving the the cost of health care, like malpractice, capping the malpractice amounts. So that's one of the highest, one of the biggest causes of an increase of health care costs across the nation,
right,
which Obamacare doesn't address. Or how about having actual interstate trade, not just within one state, but if Alaska has a plan that qualifies for New York State and it's cheaper, why can't I buy that program? That's an issue that was brought up. Democrats rejected it outright. I don't know why. I believe that's something. If we can actually get a bipartisan law, we actually get a law that's actually good. Your other question, that was the health care.
Right.
The other one was, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Frank, I even forgot.
The other one was raising the debt ceiling.
Oh, yes, debt ceiling.
The debt ceiling is difficult because you don't want to cause international turmoil and cause the entire money markets to go into a tailspin. Right. It would be worse than the recession that we saw. At the same time, we can't just keep spending. So it's not just a one-sided approach. This is not, it's spun sometimes or looked at as just being an independent thing by itself. That's not correct. We have to have a budget, which we don't have and haven't had.
We haven't had in, 12 years now we're going on or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. You can't run anything. No, businesses have difficulty planning. International trade is difficult when you don't have a budget and people don't understand what you're going to be spending. So that's part and parcel of the problem right there. We need a budget. We get that in place, and if we have a budget that can go backwards in time, not just cutting the future spending, but let's actually cut actual spending. And that's not going to be pleasant. And not everyone's going to love everything that has to be cut. But if we cut back, let's say just 10%, which there's more waste than that in the government right now, if we just cut actual spending back 10%, and then at that point, you don't even need to raise the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
It maintains itself, if not brings us back. And that helps us address the debt, and that helps us deal with the interest rate on the debt. So you take both of them at the same time. But if I'm caught in a catch-22, would I endanger the nation? No. If I could freeze the debt ceiling without endangering the nation and the economy of the nation, of course, I would reject increasing it. But I'm not going to go out there and sabotage ourselves just to be able to make a point.
Frank, last question, we got to wrap up.
Michael, very much enjoying this conversation. I'd like to ask you, as a final question, your position regarding military conflicts throughout the world, specifically Iraq, Afghanistan, Middle East, other than Syria. You just addressed Syria, but Iraq, Afghanistan, a position on that.
My position is a very strong position. I'm a former Marine, and I served in the Marine Corps Reserve. And I take a very serious approach to that because I understand. My father was a Vietnam vet, came back with Agent Orange. So I understand what it is to put someone on the front lines. I understand the cost to the families after they come back home. Many of my friends from Afghanistan, Iraq, have had some issues, serious ones, and we need to take care of them because they put themselves in the ultimate position for our nation because we asked them to. I do not believe in giving away lives lightly. There are incidents across the nation that do require our intervention because it ultimately comes back to our safety here at home, and 9/11 proved that. But at the same time, we have to do it right. I did not agree with President Bush when he sent over troops initially to start the war. But the day the first boot lands in that foreign soil, we have an obligation as a nation to have a winning strategy. We are there to win, not to draw, not to retreat. We're there. If we're going to lose our soldiers, we're going to lose our brothers and sisters, fathers and mothers, then let's get something from that.
Mike, sorry to cut you off, but my producer's telling me we're way over time, so we got to get going. Mike Vasquez, thanks so much for the opportunity to speak with you today and to introduce you to our audience. We put all the links up to your websites on our Facebook, and looking forward to this coming primary. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today. Good luck.
Thank you, and I look forward to doing it again.
You got it. Thank you.